Ryan, I'm super excited to be here with you in a really cool hangar with some awesome helicopters that you love to fly. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, a little bit about business, your life. And one of the main things is how your biggest failure became one of your biggest successes. But we'll get to that. First of all, thank you. And I'm excited to do this with you.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. What a great backdrop, right?
Yeah, this is awesome.
This is my passion, and I love aviation, love helicopters. That's how most everybody sees me on Instagram. It's a great backdrop for today's podcast.
Ryan, one of your biggest passions is aviation. We're going to talk a little bit about that, a lot about being an entrepreneur. You've had huge success there, a few losses as well. And one of the biggest things I've learned as an entrepreneur as well is you have to weather the storms. They're going to come. You're going to have challenges, probably failures along the way. And then how do you turn that into a success? And so we were talking last night a little bit, prepping and just discussing, and I really liked how you said it. You said your biggest loss, 2007, you had this development. That was a big loss for you, but you turned it into a massive success. So tell me a little bit about how that went down, how this huge loss you were able to get through, and it wasn't pleasant, wasn't fun, probably didn't feel good, but then what happened after really exploded your career and took you to some high places.
Yeah. Well, I'll say that after we bought our first real estate brokerage, and, I learned a lot about real estate being an owner of a brokerage. I decided that we would become developers. I'd done some small deals, and we found this great piece of property in Vineyard, Utah, on the east side of Utah Lake. It would have been the first lakefront property on the east side of Utah Lake.
And this was what year for context?
This is 2007. Okay. So this is right before the big crash. We acquired the land. It was a pretty significant deal. It took a lot of patience, bringing together a couple of farmers and all that. Yeah. Finally locked down this area that was going to give us about 60 lots.
Okay.
And so we went through all the horizontals. We got all the stuff done, the plans for the city.
How long did that take?
That was about 10, 12 months.
Okay.
Laid our concrete, laid our, curb and gutter, all the stuff in. This is getting close to 2008 now. The lots I think we had ended up with 62 lots.
Okay.
The lots were appraising around like 380 a lot. It was just perfect. I think we were in them probably 180, nice. So, it was a little more than that, maybe around 200. Okay. Right. And, the crash happened. Yeah. A lot of people can look back and say, well, they predicted it. I don't think anybody could predict it. No. I certainly would have invested, around $13 million in a project.
Yeah.
It was tough. We got the lots done. We went to sell our first lots. We had basically people under contract. Mm-hmm. The market crashed. The people got sideways that, like anybody would,
right?
When there's such a economic sort of disaster happening. And about 2 months later, the bank came to us and said, we don't think your property's worth what it used to be.
Yeah.
We're going to reevaluate that property. And sure enough, they came back and said, well, we think your lots that were $350,000 each are now worth about $180,000 each. So you are out of your loan covenants.
Shoot.
So
you have to have a certain amount of equity.
That's right. And they're like, we needed to bring in $5 million.
Wow.
To come up with your loan to value, basically. Mm-hmm. And of course, we were just devastated.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, the amount of money I just lost in this. So we didn't have it. Money was hard to acquire at that time.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was ever going to be worth it. But so they ended up foreclosing on the property, not because we were in default. We were in technical default, right? We had money to pay the payments, but we were in technical default.
There's a lot of that going on now.
Well. There is. And so, this amazing property turned into this, one of probably my single largest real estate failure.
Sheesh.
Hopefully ever.
It's a lot of money to lose.
It was a lot.
You lost some sleep as well.
I did. It was a lot of sleepless nights. The bank foreclosed. We tried to buy it back from the bank. They wouldn't sell it to us. They're like, no, you're the borrower, so we can't sell it back to you. So we tried to create a shell organization and come back in and made a bid on it to the bank. And they ended up selling it to one of the other home builders who had deep pockets, probably had enough cash to weather the storm, obviously. Yeah. And I think they bought it for about $4.5 million, $13 million loan, wrote down to about $4.5 million, and ended up, there's houses on every lot in that development now. It's a beautiful space, but it's hard because that was my first real development. Yeah. And it was a complete failure.
And it was just timing. It was
just timing. It was just
nothing in your control that
could not predict it. And, I just felt very beat up. I'm like, man, I lost my money, some of my friends' money, it was just horrible actually. Yeah. So here's this great big disaster happening in my life. And then I guess the bright side is, and I think this is kind of where you're going is, in business, in life, I've always found that there is an equal amount of negative happening and an equal amount of positive happening. There's never an imbalance with that. Sure. People, let me explain. It's hard to process this, but think of a battery. There is a positive side and a negative side. And a battery by itself does nothing. Yeah. But when you can take both positive and negative in your life and you can harness it, you can really do something amazing. You can produce light or energy or create something, right?
I like that, yeah.
And so at that time, I was, struggling, but there was also some opportunities popping up. The market had crashed. There was a lot of inventory out there. Banks had a lot of toxic assets. Mm-hmm. And immediately we heard about the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation had just closed a couple of banks.
FDIC.
That's right. The FDIC, they are bureaucrats. They don't want anything to do with it, but they wanted help from the private sector to help them, take some of these toxic assets, work them out, and try to help figure out how to recoup some of the money.
Because they insure all of those assets. So
That's right.
They have to then foreclose or take them on and then dispose of them somehow. They don't operate real estate. They don't want to own real estate. They don't want to develop real estate. So that's where you guys stepped in.
That's right. And the strategy that they came up with was, well, let's partner with the private sector. We'll put these up for bid, these portfolios up for bid, and we'll recoup some of our costs with the private side of the world coming in and helping us do this. So they announced a sale of both a commercial and residential portfolio of a bank in Nevada that they had closed the doors on. Mm-hmm. And so we became a qualified bidder, which was, how do we do that? It took us months to get that down. There was a lot of red tape, me and my business partner and two other partners, and somehow ended up getting qualified to do this. The bid came around and it was a closed bid. So you didn't know how many people were bidding. You didn't know what you had to look at this entire asset pool. And for us, we bid on the commercial portfolio, and it was about $701 million worth of paper and about $1.4 billion worth of assets.
Wow.
So they had lent about $701 million. So that was what they were trying to recoup.
Right.
So you were buying a 20% stake in this portfolio. Okay. So we had to put a bid in for that 20% stake. Okay. And I'll explain this in just a second. So we ended up looking at all these assets. There was only about 140 assets. Yeah. Not too many borrowers. So it was kind of like an easier portfolio to look at than some 8,000 homes on the residential side. So we went and looked at every property, put in what we thought was our best offer for what that property was worth, and ended up bidding $48 million on the property and somehow won the thing.
Wow. That's cool.
It was crazy. Little twist to the story. So this terrible thing has just happened with real estate. Then I'm taking advantage of the opportunity side, which was then going out and seeing how we could, take some of these toxic assets that had failed and turn that into, lemons to lemonade.
Yeah.
Anyways, we ended up winning this bid. I think it was only by about, $500,000 or $600,000.
Wow.
As soon as the FDIC announced that we'd won the bid, I think I got 250 calls in about the space of an hour. People wanting to partner with us and figure this out and all this and that. Here's the catch. We had an investor that was putting up a large portion of the money. We'd put up $5 million of non-refundable money to bid.
Dang.
So if we would have not been able to close, we would have foregone our $5 million. Well, our partner once we won the bid, came back and changed the deal on us.
Oh, he retraded you.
And we were sitting there going, how did this happen? Again, another terrible thing happening after a positive thing happening with this balance in life. So we ended up telling this other funding group to go pound sand. And it was probably the scariest thing we've had to do, but it was the right thing to do.
Right.
This is a Friday.
Retrading is not okay.
No.
It's a big no-no.
And I figured, and my partners figured, hey, we can find someone to replace them.
Yeah.
But we had from Friday night till being in Washington, we needed to be in Washington, D.C. on Monday morning to write this check and submit it. Well, in the space of about 48 hours, we found a funding partner to come in.
Nice.
It happened to be someone who also bid on the portfolio.
Oh, no way.
It was the first call we made. Just randomly called, we didn't know who was bidding.
Yeah.
Randomly called some of the larger investment funds in Utah. And sure enough, they had bid on the portfolio too. So they knew exactly the whole thing. We structured a deal by Sunday and we jumped on a jet and flew out to DC and closed the deal. So, again, positive, negative, right?
Yeah.
And that's just business 101. You have to anticipate. I always look at life with, no matter what happens, 50% of what I'm going to be doing is going to be, either waging warfare or I'm going to be in harmony somehow, right?
Yeah.
And that's just life, that's business. And so I've seen these, pros and cons, pluses and minuses in my career, and I just anticipate them now. And I think that's what I had to do on that losing that big real estate development, but then turn it into. We ended up as a group, we ended up recovering 71% of the entire $701 million for the FDIC. We started at 20% equity, and as soon as we liquidated $300 million of the actually it was $200 million, we went to a 60-40 split.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of people made a lot of money. Again, we went from, rags to riches, just quickly in the space of maybe a year.
Wow.
And so, sometimes that's how life goes. Opportunities and challenges kind of coexist, and it's what you do with it that makes all the difference. Understand that life is about this very important balance between positive, negative, light and dark, good and evil, however you want to look at it.
There's always going to be both. You just got to do something with it.
That's right.
I like that. My mentor and one of my investors, Rand, he's had multiple businesses traded on the stock exchange and gone public and had failures as well. And he told a story about losing 10 million to a company that just wasn't going to pay him. And he called his dad and he's like, what do I do? Like they cleaned me out. Like I needed that $10 million to keep operating my company. And his dad said, I don't know, but just figure out how to make it the most valuable lesson and turn it into a success. Mm-hmm. He's like, how the hell am I going to turn in losing $10 million into a success? And his dad said, I don't know. And he hung up.
Oh man, I will tell you, I've had, and again, this is why I see this balance of positive, negative. I've had just as many, maybe a few more, epic failures in business that have hurt.
Yeah.
Business partners stealing money from me, all kinds of stuff.
That.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in business long enough, you're going to get stolen from.
Yeah. I truly don't know any entrepreneur that hasn't had their fair share of failures. I know I have, and they are lessons.
Yeah.
They're not failures. I look at them as lessons just like you.
Yeah. You only fail if you stop trying to move forward.
That's
so
right.
It's all lessons. So take me back to hearing aids. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of, there's a lot to unpack there, but you became the biggest distributor of hearing aids in the country. Mm-hmm. How did that start?
So my first business was an audiology business. I had left a really impactful career in the hearing aid world on the manufacturing side. So I worked for a company that manufactured hearing aids for audiologists. Okay. I went in, I didn't know anything. I really liked the industry. I quickly realized that I needed to become more of an expert in hearing aids. So I became what is called a hearing instrument specialist. It's a state license that you can get like a contractor.
Sure.
I did that as a young man. This is in the late 90s. Went and worked for this tech startup in Utah called Sonic Innovations. They produced a really phenomenal new technology. I learned that business. I went from an inside sales rep to an outside sales rep. I was like number 2 in the country, competing against audiologists who had been doing this for years and years.
Wow.
and was really successful. One day I went to my boss and said, "Hey, I want to leave and go start a business." And he said, "You're crazy." I said, "I don't think so." And he said, "No, you're crazy because you're making $300,000 a year, in 1999.
That's a lot, yeah.
I think you're on a fast track to a C-level position. You've got the tenacity, you've got all the things that I just think you're making the mistake." And I said, "No, I think I've learned enough about the industry now from not only the manufacturing side, but the dispensing side or the audiology side that I want to go jump and cross over into the audiology side." And he says, "Well, man, I wish you well. This is a great mentor of mine telling me that I'm making a mistake. And this is really hard. Oh man, this is hard." So, a year later, after I'd opened several locations, I ended up hiring my mentor to come and be my COO.
No way.
And we crushed it, from 2003 to 2007, right before the crash.
Yeah.
We'd opened 15 locations in 3 states. And I was approached by one of the largest hearing aid manufacturers to buy our distribution. And I sold right before the crash. It was like a godsend, right? Nice. Positive, negative, right? This whole thing. So, ended up selling that company, did really well. That's when I went into real estate, bought a real estate brokerage. I had to make other investments outside the industry because I was in a non-compete.
Okay.
5 years. I could not compete in the industry. So I knew nothing was going to happen. And if I wanted to go back into hearing aids till 2011.
Right.
So we made a bunch of investments, the development that we lost, the, FDIC deal that we did, and a bunch of other little things that happened during that time. And then, 2011 came around and I thought, you know what? I've always been able to scale up once I learned how to do something.
Yeah.
So I thought I had 15 locations before. They're very successful. The industry had been in somewhat of a slump from the economy, and a lot of the riffraff had died off. And I thought maybe this is the time for me to go back in and 10x what I did before.
Yeah.
So I went in with the mindset that, hey, I think I can 10x what I did before. I think I can go to 150 locations.
Nice.
I know how to do this. There's a science behind it. I've really learned it. I want to go see. So I invested again, took some of the money I'd made, invested. We started with one location, and a decade later in 2021, I sold that business.
150 locations?
150 locations in 12 states.
Nice.
That was an awesome exit for me. It was a ton of work. Don't get me wrong. It was a slug.
Yeah.
And we ended up 10xing that. It was phenomenal. And now I've been investing in startups, tech companies. I'm doing a lot of coaching, mentoring. I work with small and large businesses on how to scale.
Yep.
And, my forte is real estate.
Yeah.
Technology, healthcare, consumer products, coaching,
right,
to name a few. And I just love it. I didn't know how much I really knew.
Yeah.
Because I was just always in business for myself. But I love watching entrepreneurs come with ideas. I love watching companies who have really great products and just need a little bit more of a roadmap to grow and scale. So that's kind of how I parlayed that into
it seems like
the next phase of my life.
Enjoy it too.
Oh, I do. I love it. I'm not making as much money, but I really do enjoy it, and I don't need to. It's actually, we started Limitless Society a couple of years ago with my partner, Keaton Hoskins, who's an amazing business coach. We've done really well. We've grown to about 3,000 students. We've done some really big events. And I love the modern entrepreneur. I love seeing what AI is doing.
There's a lot changing going on.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's truly.
So now that you're coaching, CEOs, entrepreneurs, everything's changing. You've had some really big deals go well, some failures. What do you think the biggest mistake entrepreneurs are making right now, or that you see most commonly?
Oh, I'm guilty of this, so I think I can tell the right story. Entrepreneurs today, they're so amazing. They're very talented. They have a lot of tools that we didn't have, in the 90s and the 2000s and 20. There's a lot of tools that they have now to really at their disposal to grow and scale their business. I think the biggest issue that most entrepreneurs today is they focus on the vision, and what they need to focus on and what they need to be relentless on is the small details in the business that support the vision. Okay. So it's this relentless pursuit to be perfect in a few details. They're like jugglers, right?
Yeah.
I think the world's best juggler can juggle like 13 balls for 29 seconds. Can't do it very long, just like, and it's actually really cool to see. But if you take a juggler that can juggle 3 or 4 balls, they can juggle those infinitely.
Yeah.
And they can be perfect at each throw and each, handle. And so with, I think the biggest mistake is a lot of entrepreneurs take on too many balls, and they need to focus on probably 3 to 4 details in the business and absolutely perfect those details.
Instead of trying to do everything.
Yes. Savagely manage these 3 or 4 things. And it's usually these small details that turn into the greatest, sort of needle movement in the business. And so I think that's the biggest problem today, is that they're just focused on too many things. They don't delegate. They don't use technology to solve problems. AI is amazing. The things it can do now. I mean, the time we save with AI is absolutely phenomenal, and that's going to continue to grow. And so I think the biggest thing is just they have to pay attention to, a couple of the details. And most CEOs should focus on, their unique selling proposition. Like, what makes us unique? What are our competitors doing? What are the gaps in the market? And then really drill down on sending that message out to the market.
Right.
They need to focus on financial management. Very, track every expense, make sure they're running a lean business.
Sure.
And then they need to focus on the customer journey. Like, that should be like literally at the forefront. How does yes. I mean, that experience is everything, that it's done perfectly every time, because it's your customers who will end up coming back to you, or they'll talk about you and all of those things. And I think it's just focusing on like 2 or 3 or 4 things, and they just absolutely perfect those details. That's probably the biggest thing that I see where entrepreneurs struggle, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're kind of doing all things, right? You're taking out the trash.
Do everything.
Yeah, you're doing this, you're doing that. And they need to find a way to, and really look at what they're talented at, to make sure they're doing things that best suit their talents, right?
Sure.
And then just offload everything else, and then make sure those people focus on those details and perfect them.
Yep.
And I think that's truly what makes a successful entrepreneur versus someone who fails. So
yeah, no, I like that. I think, when you're in the early stages of starting a business, like, you have to do everything.
Yeah.
And as I grew in my business, we hired people, and I was like, I can't do that anymore. Like, that is not my best skill set. I should not be doing that. That's a $15 an hour employee job. And that's kind of what I started looking at. I'd ask my partner, like, can we pay someone $10, $15, $20, $40 an hour to do these jobs? And we offloaded, and we've got 6 employees now, and it's been great. But we need to do it more. We hired you for coaching. Really enjoyed it. What was the book you had me read? Because that was a really good one.
Oh,
it was the leadership one, where she goes in, she gets hired, and she just dismantles the whole culture of the company. And I'll think of it in a sec, but I really like that book because it's like the dysfunctions.
Five dysfunctions of the team. Sorry, I know we read a bunch.
Yeah. That was interesting. Like, you see, and my uncle's a coach for CEOs as well, and he sees some crazy dysfunction. And that book really pointed out, and you and I talked, you and Lyndon, Sam, where are you not functioning correctly? Right. And we identified a few things. But leading into this, what is a really good coaching candidate for you? Like, what are they struggling with? Are they trying to grow and scale, which obviously you have the skill set to do? Is it the dysfunction part that you can help analyze and call out and help them work through?
Yeah, I think I do best with, someone I'm a startup guy. That's all I've ever done, startups. So I know that world, and it's very chaotic. I think I enjoy it because it is a lot of organized chaos, and you're just, what do you do now? How do you do this, that, and so on. I think it's a company that has a good leadership team, right? It's hard to make a leader out of someone who's not a leader, and a lot of founders and a lot of entrepreneurs are not leaders. So we either have to make them a leader, or we have to put someone in place that can accomplish those things that a leader would need to do. Right. To be honest, what's really funny is I am not a great leader. I'm a great starter. Okay. And I've realized that my talent is seeing the big picture, seeing the vision, but the execution side, I leave to people that are much smarter than me, financial people, operators and so on. So I think that, for entrepreneurs, I think for me, it's someone that is generating maybe several $100,000 of revenue and they want to scale. Okay. And I always tell this to all the entrepreneurs. You have to nail it before you scale it. You really do. If you can nail one location as an audiology business or 10, there isn't any reason you couldn't grow to 100. In fact, it's easier to scale by 10 than it is to scale by 2. There's a book, it's easier to 10x than 2x. That concept is so true. And, I think you have to dream big. I think you have to have a passion for growth and excellence and execution. I think truly that's what separates most entrepreneurs from the ones that are successful and not. Ideas are a dime a dozen. But execution is really, really, really hard. And I know what my strengths are as a founder. And execution can be the day-to-day execution, that detail to certain things I'm not as good at. And so I always found someone that was way better than me, way smarter than me. And if that's smart in and of itself, that's smart, right?
Absolutely.
But I always found people that could take it from, let's say, a 2-year startup to a 10-year startup. And I just knew what I was good at. And so I think a lot of my ideal candidate is someone who has nailed it and is ready to scale it, maybe largely nailed it, because you never really truly nail it. You're always in iteration. You're always changing. You're always, making improvements to your company. You have to. You never just have it. It doesn't exist. There's this iteration that always happens. Apple iterates, Amazon iterates, Tesla iterates, all these companies have to iterate. They have to change. They have to change with times, right? Right now, we're the biggest formational change in the history of the world with AI. What's that going to look like? I still don't know. I'm hypothesizing what that will look like, but I will tell you, we are going to see, I'm not the only one saying this, so it's not just my original thought, but I think we're going to see the first, $1 billion solo entrepreneur that is one person. That's it in a company.
Interesting.
They've automated everything. They don't have any staff. They don't have any employees, nothing. They've just automated everything. That's a one single solo entrepreneur that will build $1 billion business, maybe $1 trillion business. I'm sure that's coming.
Well, there's big changes coming for sure.
So
great coaching client for you is someone who really has their core business nailed down, functioning well. Because you can't really scale before you have that.
Right. And it's hard to hire a coach when you don't have a lot of revenue coming in, right? I do have clients that are independently wealthy that want to launch a new idea, have made money somewhere else, and that we are scaling something that's new. But, anybody that wants to go 2x to 10x, that's my wheelhouse.
I love that.
Yeah.
Grant Cardone says the same thing. You might as well just 10x your goals.
You're going to have goals. You're going to have dreams. They might as well be big freaking dreams, right?
I love that. So every time I do a podcast interview, I really like to focus on what really matters in life, which is being a dad, being a good person, and helping others. I know your dad actually met your daughters the other night. You just took your son down to Baja racing on your quad or your Razor, which looked awesome. You've got one on a mission. So tell me, what's most important to you about being a dad? Because it's different for every guy.
Yeah, that's truly the fundamental reason I'm here. I believe that religiously that I'm here to not only progress as a human being, but to, I've taken on that responsibility of being a father, and that is a unique moniker in the world. And I think it's something that has gone in decline over the last 20 or 30 years, fathers, And I have to have a balance in life with what I do. And I've talked about this at events, is for me, there has to be a balance with my, spiritual side, my mental side, my emotional side, my financial side. There's balance and harmony in life. And if you're out of whack in one of those areas, you're going to have a challenge in some other area of your life, one of those 5 pillars, right? So, for me, being a father is like the ultimate, it's the ultimate calling in life. And, ultimately one day when I die, I'm not going to have my customers standing around me. I'm not going to have this, I might have a legacy of businesses and things like that, but it's my kids that are going to be around me and my grandkids are going to be around me. And that's what truly matters. And I think, being a dad is a very important thing. We have this responsibility to raise our kids, make sure they're good and be good examples to them. I haven't always been the greatest example of dad. There's no playbook that you get handed as a parent. You just kind of have to learn as you go. It's kind of like being an entrepreneur, so to speak. You have to go through life and figure out all that stuff. But anyways, and I know you're an excellent dad. I see you fishing and see you camping and, I can see that you slate time to go do that for your kids and your bonus kids, as you call them. I love it.
Bonus daughters.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that for me, there's nothing more important. I actually did an exercise last night. I have a new personal growth coach. And he just had me list all these different values and then rating them, and being a dad came up number 1. And that's 100% true. That's my number 1 in life is I got to take care of these little humans, provide them with a loving environment where they can grow. Life has a ton of challenges. And then he also talked about sometimes what's most important to you comes from trauma and what you didn't have. And that's 100% right for me. I didn't have a dad that was around.
Let me tell you.
And anyways, so I love, I know you do a ton with your kids as well. Take your daughters out and your son. I mean, lots of quality time, which is my biggest thing as a dad. I've got to have I want to provide a lot of good quality time for the kids. Any books you've read recently? I mean, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team was huge for me. If you guys haven't read that, read it. Because it was really good. What else?
Man, this is probably the most, one of the most talked about books I think ever. It's Atomic Habits. I really think there's power in that book, in that it's just these tiny little things that you can do.
Yeah.
That can really move the needle in your life. And you stack a bunch of those tiny little wins up year over year over year, you become a superpower.
Well, no matter what we're talking about, if it's your relationship, the little things that you can do consistently to help your relationship with your
it's in everything.
Other, your kids, being consistent for them in business, in the gym. I'm trying to get consistent in the gym again. That's my hardest thing in life right now, is consistently hitting the gym.
Well, in life, we want results like immediately, right?
Yeah.
We just want it, and it doesn't exist.
Consistency is the biggest challenge for me.
Yeah.
And also the biggest, provides me with the most rewards when I achieve it.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, it's that discipline to something that you decide on. People talk about habits, and habits are kind of fleeting. That's why that's that name just means like I start it, I stop it. But discipline is like you're dedicated. And I think that's actually a big separator too on determining whether or not someone's going to be successful in business, in life, and all those things.
For sure.
It's discipline to being a dad, discipline to being, a steward of money in your business. It's being a good person, all those things.
I think it's discipline and being very, purposeful, not just intentional, purposeful. Yeah. Not just going through life and reacting to it. Not like, hey, your kids are struggling. Okay, what do I do? It's like, hey, I'm going to be ready for when they struggle with this. My daughter's hitting puberty. I've been preparing for this for a couple of years. I've got to make sure, it was really funny. She was like, why am I craving chocolate? I'm like, run to the store. I bring her chocolate. I'm like, congratulations, you're a young lady. And, it's like, there's funny things that, you can make being a parent way easier if you're prepared. You can make being have a relationship with your significant other way better if you're intentional about it. Business, obviously you have to be intentional or you'll get destroyed. If you're not ready and changing and intentional about where you're taking your business, coasting does not work very well.
No, it does not.
So
you cannot get in a comfort zone anytime as a parent, in business, in life.
Yeah.
You find yourself in a comfort zone. That's not a good place.
Well, let's move the conversation on to your helicopter or flying.
Yeah.
Because that kind of has a lot to do with flying. As a pilot, you have to know everything you're supposed to do. You have to be planning. Like I rode dirt bikes a lot, and they say you've got to look 50, 100 feet in front of you while you're still focusing on what you're doing to make sure that you're prepared for what's coming at you. Flying, I've got to assume, is very similar. You've got to have a plan, know what you're doing, and it's a lot like being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Helicopters, for me it's not just a passion. These machines here are owned by a couple of friends of mine, and these are kind of like the top tier types of helicopters that are out there. But for me, it is more than a passion. I'm passionate about aviation, but for me, flying helicopters has kind of a deeper story, And when I was a kid at 13 years old, there was a doctor in the town that I lived in that was very successful in Logan, Utah. And he would land his helicopter in his backyard on his tennis court. His son was a friend of mine. And I just remember as a kid, I was just enamored with that. Yeah. I was also, my parents weren't, wealthy at all. I was, wasn't poor, but I had this vision in my mind that someday I would fly it, Fast forward almost 30 plus years. I had 2 terrible concussions over the course of a year.
Oh, wow.
Really, I'm kind of a daredevil. I'm adventurous. I got, on a motocross track in Southern California, wrecked pretty hard, had a really bad concussion. And a year later, which wasn't good, as I've come to find out, I had another concussion in a skydiving tunnel in California, hit my head in both the same spots. And I, for about a year, just didn't feel right. And that led to a very dark time of my life for about 4 or 5 years. I didn't understand what was going on. I had no idea that was related to my concussions, even though I had 2 concussions. I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel like a good dad. I didn't feel like I could really function much at work. I had trouble really focusing like I'd never had before. And for me, it was really a struggle. I wondered if I was going through a midlife crisis, and I made no association to the concussions.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
And I eventually went to a therapist and went through the motions, and the therapist said, "Hey, you just don't have these telltale signs of problems. I can't quite figure this out. Have you ever had a concussion?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, I had 2 really bad ones." And that set me off on a completely separate track. I went and, was tested in a clinic in California, and sure enough, they found out that the concussions were really impacting my life. My brain was not behaving.
Wow.
And that was super empowering for me at that time.
Yeah.
Because at that time I was working with doctors who were like, well, if you can't focus, you need Adderall. If you can't sleep, you need Ambien. If you're depressed, you need, I'm like, this is not me. None of this stuff is me. So why am I having to take all this? I couldn't quite figure it out until I got a brain scan, and they're like, yeah, your brain is damaged. In fact, it's so damaged that when you want to start thinking about something and you really focus on something, your brain actually shuts off.
Really? Wow.
And when you're trying not to think about anything, like when you're going to sleep, your brain starts to fire off. And so it was this backward scenario that was happening to me. So I went on about a 2.5 year, grind of trying to find someone that could treat me. This place was just a diagnostic center.
Right.
They're like, good luck, take 26 supplements and see if that'll help you.
Yeah.
And for about 2 years, I went to New York, LA, Arizona. I mean, I would have gone to a foreign country and stood on my head for, 6 days if that would have solved the problem. I was that relentless about fixing this problem. And, just randomly had a conversation with someone who told me about a clinic in Provo that was a groundbreaking clinic. And I, of course, was like,
Provo?
Nah, I'm like, I've been to the NFL Concussion Center. I've been, this can't be in my backyard 10 miles from my house. And sure enough, I called the place. It was funded by an ex-NFL player who had a career-ending concussion. I enrolled day 1. I left the facility thinking to myself, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. I was defeated, but I committed to 5 days. Mm-hmm. Some of the treatments they were doing would have, made you go mad. Yeah. It didn't make sense to me, right? They were making me do all these things like, juggle a ball in one hand, stand on a Bosun ball in the opposite leg, and solve a math problem. Just weird, like these weird little, therapies were supposed to force my brain to behave again. Day one went by, I was just defeated. I left thinking, it's not going to work. After a CAT scan and them telling me, yep, you've got these problems. Day 2 got a little easier. Day 3 got a little easier. Day 4 got a little easier. Now I'm doing all these therapies and I'm just nailing it. I'm wondering, what is happening here?
Yeah.
By this time, it'd been 5 years. Day 5, I get his CAT scan. They said, see, you're back to normal. And I thought, I felt so good.
Wow.
In 5 days of treatment.
That's crazy.
I felt like, is this a placebo effect? Is this really happening? Yeah. And I remember it. I'll remember this the rest of my life. I was walking out the doors in Provo.
Uh-huh.
It was a beautiful day. And I had just finished this round of treatment. I said to myself, what is it that I can do that I can prove that I'm back? Like something I know I could not do before.
Yeah.
And I walked out of the doors and I looked up in the sky and I said, I'm going to go be a helicopter pilot.
That's cool.
And I enrolled the next day. And about, I think 7 or 8 months later, I ended up getting my license. So when I fly helicopters, it's more of a tribute to overcoming a really negative side of my life, right? The positive now side of it is I get to go out, take people, first timers, and then show them what it's like to be like a hummingbird. Yeah. And land where you want and go where you want. No, so it's for me, it's a massive tribute over a really challenging time in my life. And every time I start that helicopter and I hear that turbine engine spool up, to me, it's just like this, such a great satisfaction about overcoming trials, overcoming challenges, mindsets, all these things, this terrible place I was for the longest time. And I honestly feel better than I did before. Wow. So take that for what it is. That is this mantra I live by, that you just have to expect those negative things are going to come into your life. But if you just keep touching that positive side of that battery, you can do anything. You literally can do anything.
I love that. We started talking about your biggest failure turned into your biggest multi-million-dollar success. One of your biggest successes, not being yourself for years and years and years has got to be really tough. And then turning that into, hey, proving myself I can do something, turn it into a positive, taking me out on the helicopter. It's really fun. We actually saw the rocket.
I got to say, that was probably one of the most incredible nights of flying that I've ever had. And I could not process what I was seeing.
So describe what we saw, because it was crazy.
We're flying. And
sun had just set. We're just
and I'm looking over in the distance, and the sun was down pretty good. And I looked across the horizon. I saw a celestial event I have never seen in my life. It looked like the largest comet in the history of the universe was approaching, the Earth. Yeah. And we're flying this way, and it's kind of coming along the side of us. I could not
just crested the horizon.
Yeah, and it had a tail on it that must have been 500 miles long, right? And I just could not make sense of what it was. And as we watched it disappear on the horizon, we started Googling and realized it was SpaceX.
SpaceX launch.
And I was like, that was one of the timing of that was unreal. And I got to share that with you. What an amazing, in that helicopter right there. It was absolutely phenomenal. I'll never forget it.
It was
so cool. I love SpaceX too. Yeah.
It was so cool to see.
What a great opportunity that was. But that's the joy of flying. It's having those amazing moments. So again, turning a real negative in my life, 5 years of my life. Now I've been almost flying 10 years. And when we go out and fly today, you're going to get to see me cross over 1,000 hours.
Oh, that's cool.
A flight. That's kind of a number really cool. We all like to get to, your first 100 hours, your first 1,000 hours. So that'll be awesome. That'll be a fun opportunity to share with you.
Well, Ryan, thank you for your time. Love the message, turning negatives. You've got a battery, positive, negative. You can't just focus on the negative, because if you focus on the positive, you can do amazing things. And you got to put that battery to work, put the negativity to work, put the positivity to work. And obviously you've done great things in your career. It's great pleasure being your friend.
Likewise.
Coaching with you as well, flying as well. So let's go jump in the helicopter and have some fun.
Let's do it.